Hello, friend. Welcome to our episode today, and I'm going to be talking to you about the right to belong. And this comes to you as the first lesson of the Rattle Collective journey. So, I want to explore this topic because it's something that is so personal and near and dear to my heart. And it's something that's so important in getting ourselves properly centered in developing a spiritual path. So when we think about the right to belong, we're thinking about and we're looking at the situations in our lives that have caused us to feel like we cannot be included, make us feel like we are operating outside of ourselves, and like wherever we go, whatever social situation we encounter, we just don't fit in. So there's like almost like this marked departure between how you feel in your body and how you're acting out publicly in society and just the transactions that you take on. So I want to share with you a little bit about my story and how I came to this self-awareness and this self-discovery journey, and how this lesson has ended up as the first peek into the Rattle Collective. So if you don't know, my family immigrated to Canada in 1991. At the time, I was 5 years old. So we know from studying the chakras that the first chakra doesn't open until the age of 7. So up until that point, we are just receiving all the information that's coming to us from our family, from our parents, from our community, because that chakra remains closed. So it starts to open up at age 7. By age 7, I was already here in Canada, but there was trauma that happened prior to that chakra opening up. So what that has brought on for me, and what I've come to understand about myself, is that was a very traumatic experience for me that I never actually dealt with in terms of my identity. So it became this thing where I was always trying to understand who I was and culturally where I belonged to, because I wasn't, Costa Rican enough to be Costa Rican, but then I also wasn't Canadian enough to be Canadian, if you understand what I mean. There's always kind of this gap in terms of belonging. And I also couldn't claim certain things for myself because there's this kind of nuanced qualifier when you can say that you've been subjugated or marginalized. So when you're more of a light-skinned Hispanic like myself, there's this very messy, weird place that we navigate. And it kind of goes on to be this silent war within yourself, because there's resentment that comes through, there's guilt, there's frustration, and there's definitely a lot of pieces that come with identity and come with belonging that don't get resolved on their own. So without having proper guidance, this stuff kind of like goes into the background, goes into the subconscious, and this resolve of safety and belonging don't get to join up in your external world. So there's pieces of you that are disjointed. So that was my experience, and that's how I kind of ended up getting additional pain points and additional miseries that came with that. There was abandonment issues, there was fear, there was detachment, there was negative love. There was a lot of walls that I had that I didn't even know that I created. I didn't have the awareness of this. So when it came to nurturing, partnerships and relationships, I really had no clue. There's no baseline for me. So I ended up having very tumultuous relationships, very high intensity, very passionate, very loving, very like crashing relationships, because there was no sustainability there. There was no foundation. I didn't ever feel like I belonged in those relationships. So as soon as that essence of belonging started to bubble up, I was out the door. I was out the door, abruptly ending relationships that really could have been nurtured, but in retrospect, it was meant to be. So it wasn't until I got married and the permanence of marriage really started to ask bigger questions of me, and really brought on these lessons with maturity about how I wanted to be in a loving relationship and really explore if I felt like I even belonged in a marriage. And I just kept saying that was represented like, I'm not conventional, this isn't for me. But everything that I had been doing in my life was evidence of being conventional and being traditional. So there was this disconnect about my beliefs and my viewpoints, and then how my trauma was informing the situation. So So working through therapy was one entry point, but it wasn't until I started to really open up to spirituality that I really found that question of belonging and exploring that question of belonging and how it originated for me and how it impacted my life. So I started asking myself, when those baseline foundational questions of life come up, like, who am I? And paired that with, do I feel like I belong here? And I was ready to let go of the labels of being the weirdo, of being the odd one out, of being the lone wolf, of being the person, being the other all the time. And I also stripped away the identity of feminism. And I also stripped away the identity of being kind of like, very much in my masculine energy, because that was something that I was doing to preserve myself. That was like armor that I was wearing, and I was wearing the label of a feminist to help myself preserve myself in my sense of belonging, and like trying to attach myself to something that actually ended up being the thing that wasn't working for me, right? It was an identity that wasn't working for me because I have a lot more heart to give. So I felt very limited by that identity. So once I started to strip away these labels and not be held to that, I'm not just the Latina, I'm not just the mom, I'm not just the immigrant, I'm not just, the woman that's got all these intersectionalities. I'm a soul, and my soul belongs here, and it's sacred. That was my foundation for really getting myself going on becoming on that road towards healing and really lining up with my spiritual path and being, the vehicle that brought me forward. So if you're feeling that way, if you're feeling disconnected from yourself, from your identity, from your right to belong, from your right to be here, I want to just offer this to you that I understand completely. And if those are the questions that are coming up for you right now is the opportunity to sit down and put some grace and love and compassion back into your heart and to say to yourself, okay, I understand that this is what is coming up for me right now, but where did this sense of belonging originate from? Where did this lack of participation originate from? And what can I do to help myself feel like that force of nature that belongs here? What can I do today to be more of myself? And what vision do I want for myself in the future? The more you start to position yourself and start to feel the possibility and you start to feel the excitement of belonging, your body will welcome that for you. It's all about changing perception. It's about changing mindset and opening yourself up to those possibilities. So we explore healing the first chakra, which is the root chakra, and it's responsible for answering that big question of belonging in the Rattle Collective, which is my new digital course. And I take you through this beautiful framework with journal prompts, meditations to really activate that chakra and get it going. So if you're interested, click on the link below and you can learn more about the Rattle Collective, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.